Hello everyone and welcome to this very special video. I promised I was going to bring you the introduction to Marvelous Designer. This video is meant to be the start of your journey in the 3D world for Marvelous Designer, and throughout this video I'm going to show you how to do this asset right here. We're going to go for a very classic Jedi Robe that you see right here, and if you've never used Marvelous Designer before, don't worry, I'm going to be covering everything. We're going to be going over the interface, we're going to be going over patterns, sewing, all of the things that you need to do or know to get to this result. I actually have the final result of the element right here, and this is where you're gonna be able to get. Okay, now I'm gonna show you one very cool thing. Right now we're running a 90% discount, so if you want to get the full Marvelous Designer course, you can find the information right here. Hello everyone and welcome to this special announcement. Spring break is almost here and we want to celebrate by offering an amazing discount for all of our courses, all of them. From March 20 to March 24, you guys will be able to get all of our courses, any of them, with a very special discount. For the next few days, we're offering a massive 90% discount on all of our courses on Udemy. Whether you're a beginner just starting your 3D journey or an advanced student looking to take your skills to the next level, we have the perfect course for you. Do you want to learn Maya? We have it. Do you want to learn ZBrush? Here we go. Do you want to learn Substance Painter, 3D Code, Houdini, Blender? We got them all. We have over 60 courses available for you right now. All courses include the files, the resources, and we have a dedicated Q&A to answer all of your questions. So, what are you waiting for? Head over to Udemy now and take advantage of this amazing offer. Don't miss your chance to start your 3D journey and become a great artist in no time. Very well guys, so welcome to Marvelous Designer. This is an amazing software, and hopefully throughout this very brief class, or relatively brief, I'm going to be able to show you the main tools so that you too can learn how to make amazing clothing for your characters. The main way we utilize Marvelous Designer in the industry, or at least here in the production that we have, is to generate the clothing for our characters and even to do simulations for animation. So the way this works is very, very simple. First of all, we need to understand the interface. So on this side right here, we're going to have the main library, our avatars and everything that we're going to be using. We have our main menus over here, our 3D window, our 2D pattern window, and all of the different tools and options for the 2D window and all of the different tools and options for the 3D window. Of course, we're not going to be able to cover this in this particular video, but everything is inside of our premium course. So if we go over here, you can see that we also have a panel for the fabric and we have a panel for the property editor, which we don't have right now. I mean, it's not enabled right now, but we're going to be utilizing very, very briefly. The big strength about this software right here, Marvelous Designer, is the fact that we can very easily create something like this rectangle right here. I can create a small rectangle here on my 2D pattern window, and I'm going to get the preview of what this piece of clothing would look like on a 3D world. The movement into the 3D world, I actually have mine set up to match the same one as in Maya. You can change this in settings and preferences. And then right here under view controls, I have mine set to Maya. So it works with Alt and click, it's gonna rotate the camera. Alt and middle mouse, it's gonna move the camera around or pan the camera. And then Alt and right click is gonna zoom the camera. You can also zoom with a little scroll wheel. On the 2D pattern window, you actually don't need anything but to zoom in and Alt and middle mouse to move from left to right because we only have 2 dimensions, right? So as you can see, we have this piece of clothing. It's just I don't know, like a mantle or something. And if we click this little arrow right here, which right now is set to normal default, it's going to simulate. And what's going to happen, as you can see right here, it's going to simulate the cloth and it's going to give me a very nice simulation of how this cloth would look on the real world. You can see I can actually click and drag it and move it around and create this like dancing, this dancing handkerchief. And yeah, there we go. So at any point I can just like drop it and it will drop to the ground and it will fold and create the wrinkles and everything that we would expect this thing to have if it was on the real world. At any point during the simulation, you can press spacebar and this will pause the simulation. And this is an excellent way also to generate assets that we can very easily export to any other 3D package and render for this sort of like still images. So if you're doing still images with a lot of like cloth floating around and stuff like that, there you go. Like with this, you just literally select this garment, go file, export, you export as FBX or any of the other like elements that you might need, and you have a floating cloth that looks really, really nice. Now, there's a couple of things I want to talk about the simulation process because simulation is quite intensive on the CPU and on the GPU. You can change this to fast GPU, but it's not going to be as precise. You can see it actually, it's not giving me the same sort of like wrinkles that CPU is giving me, even though it's like really, really fast. If you have a GeForce card, you're going to be able to use the CUDA cores to get like faster simulation times, but it's not going to be as precise. I personally like to work with normal, which is going to be using mostly CPU, but it's going to give you way, way more believable physics. So yeah, there we go. Now, there's other things that are dependent on how like the cloth behaves. Let me bring this up and pause real quick. There we go. If we zoom in, you can see that this cloth right here is made out of a lot of different triangles. If you're familiar with ZBrush, this is something that you've seen before in Dynamesh and things like that. It's a sort of like tessellation. It triangulates the whole element in order to give you the best possible density while still keeping the elements as like smooth as possible in regards to the simulation. So if I go to these options right here, these are the visibility options, all of the things that we can see inside of the viewport. If we go to this one right here and we check it's this one. And we go to the wireframe on surface, you can see that we get all of the different triangles that make up this clothing right here. And right now the resolution is low enough that we can work and modify and simulate it very easily without having to worry about our computer slowing down. However, if we want, we can actually select the pattern over here. And on this side right here, we can change the particle density. It's all the way up here where it says simulation properties, particle density. We can change this to something like a 10. And what's going to happen, as you can see, is now we get smaller triangles. And what this will translate to when we simulate is the simulation is going to be a little bit heavier. As you can see right there, the computer is having a little bit more of a trouble or more trouble like simulating everything. It's a lot slower, but you're also going to get even better and nicer wrinkles. So if I stop it right here, for instance, and we go back to just like the normal mesh, or not the mesh, sorry. Let's just do texture surface. There we go. You're going to see that the wrinkles are even nicer. Okay. So this is a really, really, really nice way to, again, to get some like still images. I've used this before for some of my renders. If you just want to have like a curtain or like a cloth on top of a table or like a tarp lying around in like an abandoned subway, well, it's very, very easy to bring objects in and just like generate very simple clothing elements. Now, this is not the main reason why we use Marvelous Designer. We use this one, of course, to cloth our characters. And in today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to do one of the classic pieces of clothing, which is, of course, the Jedi Robe. So the interesting thing about the Marvelous Designer software is that the more knowledge you have about traditional like clothing, like making techniques, the easier it's going to be, because the closer you get to the actual patterns and the curvatures and the darts and the sewing lines and everything, the easier everything is going to be. Of course, we're not going to be able to cover all of that right now, but we're going to cover the basics. So if we take a look at this, you can see that the robe of a Jedi is rather simple. It's just this very long, flowy robe, and then the sleeves, and then we have a little bit of like a cowl, right? So that's what we want to do. This is what we want to create. And in order to do that, usually we would like to have a character. So by default, if you go here to the avatar section, you're going to see that we have a couple of different avatars. We have male avatars, we have female avatars, and we also even have, like, if you guys are into like anime stuff, we got this like Hannah avatar, which is a really cool like stylized character. But the cool thing is you can bring or create your own avatars. And this is one of the ones that we use inside of the premium course, which is an Agrok. It's a very like buffed out amphibian looking guy. And we're going to be using this to create our Jedi Robe. So the way this works is, I would say, rather simple. We need to copy or find the best possible pattern to generate our element. And you can look for it like this, Jedi Robe pattern. And you can find this one. It's like, okay, so what we need is we need a cut for the neck. We need the sleeves, and we need the like big cut for the main like shape of our element. So if we go over here, we can see that we have a lot of different tools. I'm going to show you one that I use a lot, which is this. And the third button, we got the polygon tool right here. So with the polygon tool, I'm going to start creating the pattern for our robe. So we're going to start like right here in the center. I'm going to create 2 points for the neck, and then we're going to go to the shoulder. And then for the shoulder, we're going to go all the way to the sleeve. We're going to make a big sleeve, as you can see right here. We're going to go to the armpit. We're going to go down to the waist, a little bit outside of the element. And then we're going to bring this all the way down, like right around there, to the center, and all the way to the top. There we go. So as you can see, we just created, very similar to how we have the initial square, we just created a robe here that at any point we can simulate, and we get like what would happen with this robe right here. You can click this little button to reset the arrangement, this one with the shirt, and we got like the first part for our character. Now, what we want to do is we want to create the other parts, and the easiest way to do that is literally Control C and Control B. If we Control C and Control B, we're going to get this guy right here, which is the copy of the pattern. We can right click and we can mirror this, or we can use this option called mirror paste, which is going to create a copy, but with the object mirrored. So that's actually what we want. We're going to have this one right here, and we're going to mirror paste to get the other side. Now, of course, we need the back side of the robe. So we need to do this again. Control C, Control R. This is going to be the back right side. And then this one, Control C, Control R. And this is going to be the back front side. Okay, there we go. Now, all of them are living right now on the same place. So I'm going to have to select this guy right here, click on the pattern, and just move it to the back. This one right here, actually, not that one. It was, let's select this one. Here, select this one, and then click. There we go. It's this one right here. So we're just going to move this one right here. And with the gizmo, with the green color, we're going to rotate this around so that the white part is facing back. And then we select one of these guys right here. This guy. And we're going to rotate this around. And that's going to be the back of the character. Now, on the backs of the character, like this guy right here and this guy right here, I might not want the neck to go down into a U shape. I might want to have it straight. So what we can do here is we can link two of the patterns together. We can select this one and this one, right click, and we can do this thing called symmetric pattern with sewing, okay? So what this will do, or apply linked editing symmetric pattern with sewing. What this will do is they will now be connected. And if, for instance, I go to, let's say, this point right here and I delete it, it's going to delete it on both sides, see? So it makes it very, very easy to modify things symmetrical. I'm going to push this up. There we go. And now the neck on the back part, as you can see, is going to be completely straight. We can do the same thing for these patterns right here. Select both of them, right click, and I'm going to select symmetric pattern with sewing, apply linked editing. So it's going to connect them in this sort of like invisible connection so that anything that I do with one of them is going to affect the other one, okay? Now, the next thing that I can do is, hey, what if I want, like if I just simulate this right now, what's going to happen is all of the pieces are just going to fall into the ground. And I don't want that. I want this thing to fall like a robe, like a cloth. So what I need to do is I need to start creating one of the most powerful things here inside of Marvelous Designer, which are sewing lines. Sewing lines are the way we're going to be stitching different patterns together and making sure that our cloths fit. You can see, for instance, my jacket here, I have a seam line going right around this part of the sleeve. I have a couple of like extra details on the handcuffs and stuff. Like there's so many seam lines everywhere on our cloths, right? So what we want to do is we want to replicate that here inside of Marvelous Designer. We don't want to sew the first part here, or the open part that's supposed to be open, but we do want to sew the back part. So I'm going to click over here, which is our sewing tool. And I'm going to say segment sewing, and we're going to sew from this back to this back right here. And as you can see, once we do that, we're going to get this like threads connecting both patterns. And that tells me that we've successfully combined or connected these two elements. So when I simulate, which I'm not going to do right now, but when we simulate, both of those elements are going to get stuck together. Now, on the sides of the character, like this side right here, I also want to connect it to this side right here. And this side right here, I want to connect it to this side right here. So as you can see, the front and the back of the pattern are going to be now connected. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Or actually, it already did it for us because we're using the symmetric pattern. The sleeves, same thing. I'm going to go from here to here. And we're going to connect the sleeves on both sides. And on the inside of the sleeve, we're going to do the same thing. A very common mistake that happens is this that I'm about to show you, where when we do the stitching looks crossed like that. That sometimes is needed for specific types of like sewing patterns. But in this case, we don't want this. If we do this, what's going to happen is the left part of the sewing thing is going to attach itself to the lower part of the other one. And they're going to do a very ugly flip. So in order to change that, we can go here to the edit sewing button, select that sewing right there, right click and just say, oh, right click. Oh, come on. Am I using the, yeah, edit sewing. There we go. So we select the sewing, right click, and we reverse sewing. There we go. So now, as you can see, that is now properly laid out. And technically, if we simulate now, this will go across the character, and we're gonna start creating our row very, very nicely. Now there's a problem. I'm actually gonna hit Control C, Control C, Control C, Control C. There we go. The problem is we forgot to sew the top parts as well. This guy's right here. But we have a big problem. The fact that we deleted the points on this side is going to change slightly the elements on the other side. So these two sides no longer match this front side right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my sewing tool, segment sewing again. We're going to sew from one border to the other, and we're just going to let this simulate. And there we go. So as you can see now, this looks like a robe. It's flowing very, very nicely. Look at this very amazing flow on the back of the character, on the other side of the character. It's giving us a really, really, really nice effect. But I don't love some of the things that are happening here. For instance, I feel like it's really tight. Like the sleeves look really, really, really tight. Like they're not as flowy on the arms as I would like them to be. And they're not as long as I would like them to be either. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the elements and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to grab this point right here, which is part of the sleeve. I'm going to give it a little bit more room. This is, of course, going to like happen on both sides. And we might want to do the same thing on this one. Just like guesstimate the average there. And when we render now, there we go. We're going to get this. Now, unfortunately, the little spike thingy of the element is going to be a little bit low. Same thing for this one. I think this one's a little bit high. So I'm going to lower this a little bit more. And I'm also going to do this over here. And then when we do this, we should have a lower like insertion point for the whole thing. We can bring this up a little bit more. It's definitely helping. Now, this guy does have some spikes on his anatomy. So it's definitely influencing the way the robe is falling on top of everything. But we're getting a nice result, as you can see right here. I love the flowing effect that we have here. However, one thing I'm noticing is that on the back, it's giving me a very straight effect. And I would like to have a more round tail, if you know what I mean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the 2 points on the back of the character, and I'm going to push it back. This is going to create a more like triangular looking shape. And then this guy right here, I can actually change the curvature of the cloth. I can give it a little bit of a curvature, and now it's going to be like a half circle. So when we simulate, especially if we start pushing this cloth back, you can see that we're going to get this sort of like a round effect on the back of the elements. Now, I know I'm moving a little bit fast here, and I've done this before. That's why I'm able to just like know exactly what I need. We go over all of these steps on the advanced course. I actually cover a lot of like traditional sewing things that you need to know in order to get the best possible result. But there we go. Now, how can we make the sleeves longer? Very easy. We go over here. We go to edit pattern. We select all of the sleeves right here, front and back. And actually, we just grab these two guys. We're going to do edit pattern. There we go. And we just move them down. Okay, let's do something different. Let's start with this one. So let's push this down, and then this one, push it down like that. There we go. So now we simulate, and as you can see, we're going to get longer sleeves for the character. And this thing is going to start looking a lot better. Cool. Now we're missing a very important thing, which is the cowl, right? Like the head of the character. And this is where we're going to be going into a little bit more advanced topics. So I would suggest you pause the video if you're following along, get to this point, to the like very first part of the robe first, and then we'll go, or I'll show you how to do the cowl. So for the cowl is really, really interesting because as you can see, the cowl is pretty much just a square. It's just a square that wraps around our character, but it's a very, very specific square because as you can see right here, we don't want the hood to be pointy. If we just do a square, the hood is going to look pointy. We want the hood to be round. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the head with my polygonal tool. I'm going to create a polygon. I'm going to do front, lower section, base, and then point, and finish it right there. And then this point right there, I'm going to right click. I'm going to convert this into a curve. There we go. Boop. And we get the nice section there for our hood. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that if we want the hood to like fit perfectly on the neck of our element, we need to know how long our neck is. So if I select this line right here, this line right here, and this line right here, which are the borders of the back part of our element, I'm gonna see, as you can see right there on my little mouse, a specific number, 226.3. So I need to make sure that this right here measures 226.3. So I'm going to move this thing down, and I'm going to make this go all the way to 226.3. 0.3, and there we go. We can, of course, go to this curvature right here, and we can change the curvature of the element. So let's go here to edit curvature, and we can make it a little bit smaller like this, and there we go. So this pattern that I have right here will perfectly match the border of our element, which might be something that we want, might be something that we don't want. We're gonna see once we get this going. I definitely know that we're gonna need a little bit more volume on the element. So I'm gonna bring this up a little bit more, and we might need to actually like increase the curvature, because I do want the insertion point to be very similar, but I do want to have a lot more volume because this guy has a really big head. So let's transform our points again and just move this point up so we get this sort of like very interesting hood. Now we need to use a tool that's really interesting. We can't use segment sewing, which is what we use for the robe, because we have one segment for the head and 3 segments for the robe. So what we need to do is we need to use a slightly different tool. First, I'm gonna press Ctrl-C and then Ctrl-R to do the like the connection here. Right click, and let's just make sure that this is symmetric with the sewing pattern. And now I'm gonna go to my sewing line. I'm gonna use this option called free sewing. I'm gonna sew by section. So I'm gonna start from here to this neck point, and then from here, and you're gonna get that little blue dot that you see right there. That one right there, that tells you the exact distance that you need. So it's that one right there. And then the next segment from here to here. There we go. And then the last segment is gonna be this one right here. And it should be that one right there. So we successfully sewn, as you can see, this segment's on the back. Now we can indeed use our segment sewing to go from this back part to this front part right here and get what we want. So now when we simulate, the hood is gonna fall, and we can start playing around with this to generate how big or small we want this to be. I'm gonna try to loop this on top of the character. There we go. As you can see, the horns and everything are gonna make it a little bit complicated. Just move this across. There we go. And we can start placing this in such a way that we capture this. There we go. So now what am I noticing here? Well, of course I need to like work this a little bit better. Especially there we go. If we go right around there, we should be able to get this thing to look quite nice. I'm sure he would hate to use this cowls, to be honest, because of the shape of his head. It's not very round, but you can see how everything just falls into place. So now here's where we can start making adjustments. Maybe like we can be like, hey, you know what? Like, as we mentioned, maybe this guy does not use the thing like up in the head because it's very complicated. So if we just let this thing drop to the back, like that's way too big, right? Like it looks interesting, but it's way too big of a head space. So I'm gonna go back to this. I'm gonna stop the simulation, go back over here. And again, if we select our transform points, and this is the great thing about the software, everything's very dynamic. So at any point, we can just start modifying all of these things and get the element that fits our character the most. So now when we render this, you can see the cowl looks a lot better. And that's it. So we've successfully created a Jedi like robe, very nice looking Jedi robe here for our character. And we are ready to work with a little bit of the material. I know materials are one of the things that a lot of people like. This is not a rendering software, so you're not going to be able to get the best out of this. However, on the course, I do include how to render this inside of Marmoset and inside of Arnold to get even better results for your portfolio. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go to the fabric here, and I'm just going to change the color, to be honest. Like just changing this to like a dark brown color should already give us a very nice detail for the whole thing. And now it's just a matter of like modifying this and getting this to look as close as possible, or getting this as close as possible to the look that you want. If you feel like, for instance, the front part is way too thin, one thing we could do is go back to this pattern right here. By the way, you can move the patterns around. They don't need to be exactly there. And if I select, for instance, this segment, you can edit pattern, and I select this segment here, can make it a little bit longer on the front, and when we render, that's going to give me more fabric on the front part of the character. There's a very cool thing called pins. So if I stop the like animation here with spacebar, I can actually go with this text, which is just like that's what it says. It's like a little needle, and you can use this tag on avatar. I can select a piece of my mesh and then a piece of the avatar, and then when we simulate, that piece of the avatar is going to be like stuck right there. And then, for instance, I can move this thing to the front, right there. Again, stop the element. And I can do now a tack from this piece to this piece. And when we simulate, we're pretty much closing the robe right there. So again, it's a cool way to get a little bit more control over how you want your clothing to look. I'm just gonna remove the text right there. I do like the new length, to be honest. And that's it. Now, one last thing we can do here to make this thing look even better is we can, of course, increase the particle density, because even though it does look quite nice, as you can see, it's a little bit crumpled in certain areas. So it might not be a bad idea to generate a more density. So I'm going to select everything here, and I'm going to go into the particle distance and lower all of this down to 10. When I do that and hit simulate, the whole thing is going to simulate. The little like wrinkles and everything are going to be nicer, smoother, and we're going to get a really, really nice result. So yeah, that's it, my friends. With this, I mean, 25 minutes and you guys already know the basics of the Marvelous Designer. As you can see, it becomes a little bit more complicated to manipulate the elements right here, because the density is a lot bigger. So usually what is recommended is for people to work with higher particle densities when blocking in your elements or your characters. And then once you're happy with this, you can go and modify this. In this case, I'm gonna like move this up a little bit because I want to do a render, which is the one that you probably saw at the beginning of the video. And yeah, so I'm gonna stop the simulation right there. It's overlapping the finger. There we go. There we go. So kind of want the whole cape to be flowing a little bit more. But that's it, my friends. This is an introduction for Marvelous Designer. We went over the interface, we went over the basic properties and how to create your first pattern. So I encourage you guys to download the trial version and start playing around with this. And if you want to get really deep into how to construct a lot of functionals like props and garments for your characters, we do have our like Marvelous Designer course available for you in Udemy down here in the description. So this is it for me, guys. I'll see you back on the next one. And that's it, my friends. Hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully you now have the opportunity to try out Marvelous Designer, which is an amazing software for any character artist out there. It's just so good to use. It's very easy to use, very simple, and you can get amazing results like this one. Now, this render I actually did instead of Arnold. We do cover all of those stuff on the premium course. So again, if you want to make use of the coupon code, go down here to the description, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna see you back in some of our live streams this week, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That's how we help the channel grow. Thank you very much, my friends, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.